they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cody's brothers, my guys. Know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cody's brothers, my guys. Know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Tonight, I know I always tell you we have something special, but tonight we have kidney stars on tonight, baby. Tonight, the baseball card kidney couple is with us, Steve and Heather Winfree. This is one terrific kidney story. Steve's kidneys failed. He needed a donor. The love of his life tested for him at Vanderbilt Renal Transplant Center. They called Heather and told her, and her alone, that she was a match for her husband. She knew that Steve was a big baseball fan and had the top baseball card company make a special card for him to let him know about the match. She slipped the Steve Winfree baseball card into a pack of cards and gave him the pack, telling him it was a special pack. All of this was caught on video, and I'll be sharing that in the comments to the repeat broadcast, so you look out for it. Steve was ultimately transplanted on September 28th, 2017. Recently, they celebrated Steve's 4th kidneyversary. Since that time, they have become tremendous ambassadors and advocates, raising awareness of kidney disease and the plight of kidney patients by appearing on television, radio, social media, and kidney advocacy groups like our friends at the American Kidney Fund. So tonight, we catch up with the Winfrees, and they have nothing but exciting news for us tonight, folks. All kinds of new, different, and interesting things going on with Steve and Heather. I am fired up about this broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve and Heather Winfree are here tonight. Start the show, Jared. Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hey.
Good. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Oh, well, you know, I've got my heroes on tonight, man. I'm fired up. So did I state everything correctly in the introduction?
I think you gave us too much credit, but yes, you did.
All right, let's get right into it, folks. Tell us a little bit about how the two of you met. And I want to start with Miss Heather first.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So Steve and I met. I was getting my undergraduate degree at Middle Tennessee State University, and Steve was getting his master's degree there. And we actually met at a softball game at MTSU, and that's how we met. Was baseball was the first way that we met, actually. So kind of fortuitous there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually quite interesting because about a month or two before, I was informed that my graduate assistantship that I had at MTSU had ended. They didn't have the funding for it, so I had the choice to make whether I just quit and stop after one semester of getting my master's, or do I take out a student loan and pay on it for the rest of my life. And I decided to do the latter, and I'm really glad I did, because I was asked by a friend of mine in the athletic department if I could come and help with the Lady Raiders softball game. And so I did that. And the first game that we had is when this girl walks in, and she has these overalls on, and it's just like the cutest girl I've ever seen in my entire life. But she was there to see her boyfriend. And so I didn't really think too much of it. But as for those who really know me, they know I have a very unique sense of humor. And my sense of humor comes out in a lot of what I do. And so when I was doing my job at the softball game, me and my friend were in charge of the music that plays on the field and the sound effects and announcing the player's name. And so I guess my sense of humor really caught her attention, because my buddy was like, man, every time you say something or play one of your goofy sounds, this girl over here is like smiling and like laughing. And sure enough, that worked out, because when her boyfriend introduced her to me, that ended up being a horrible mistake on his part, but a wonderful thing for me. It was meant to be.
Yeah, it was a quick relationship that I had with that guy, and he actually ended up cheating on me. And then as soon as that relationship ended, Steve kind of swooped in.
Do you want me to tell you how I swooped in? I'll tell you my version of how I swooped in. So, and I will be honest. I was on my way back to Murfreesboro, and I looked at her profile, and I saw where it said single. So me being the clever human being that I am, I sent her a message and said, hey, it was really nice to meet you. Too bad I don't have a girlfriend, or else we could double date. Because I was trying to get it out of her. Oh, I don't have a boyfriend. And I'll be like, well, how about that?
So I said, yeah, I'd love to go on a double date with you, but I have to find a date first. And
I was like,
the rest is history.
Which is so funny, because we still have that conversation, because I guess Facebook saves your messenger messages for eternity. And so I was able to scroll back. Yeah, and this was in 2010. So I was able to go back to the very beginning of our first messages, and it's still there. So I copy and print it, and I'm going to print it out and be like, this is where it all began. Me and my smooth moves and my pickup lines saved my life down the road.
Tell me a little bit about your courtship and when you were married, that type of thing.
You want to?
Let's start with Steve this time.
Yeah, go for it.
You're picking which version you want to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'm a guy. I want to hear the guy's version, man.
Well, I'll tell you, Jim. I didn't really want a girlfriend at the time, and she was very persistent. She liked what she saw that day, and she kept asking me out over and over, and I was like, I don't want a girlfriend. And then
let's do the true story.
That is what happened. And then one day we met, and we were talking in the library, because that's where she worked. We were talking in the stacks at the library, which is always the best place to meet a girl. And she finally, through being extremely sweet and cute and kind and funny, we arranged our first date. And that night was to go see a movie. And we went and saw Iron Man 2 that night. And I was hooked at that point. I was like, she is amazing. But not once did I ever tell her about my kidney problems, because I kept that real close to the chest, because that had come back to bite me a lot in my dating life. Which, looking back, I guess I don't blame a girl who's so young to try to imagine handling something like that so early. So, but yeah, I never brought it up to her, and we had a great first date. What do you think happened?
Well, yeah,
Heather,
like
tell me a little bit about the courtship, Heather. What happened after the movie?
Yeah, so it was an interesting start to the relationship because we had both just kind of gotten out of relationships that hadn't ended so great, and we didn't really, you know, really want to be in a relationship, didn't really trust people. And so on that first date, we just kind of laid everything out on the line. After we went to the movie, we went to Sonic and we just talked. And it was probably one of those conversations that they tell you you shouldn't have on a first date. I mean, we talked about finances and religion and politics and just kind of just who we are as people and what we want in life. And I guess we both felt the same about a lot of things. And so it kind of just put a really good foundation of a friendship. Steve's my best friend, and it's kind of just been that way ever since, where we can literally talk about anything and just feel completely comfortable to share all of our thoughts and desires and dreams with each other and just not feel ashamed of who we are and where we came from. And like you said, he hadn't told me much early on about his kidney disease, and he, I think, waited several months into our relationship until things got pretty serious. And one day we were having a phone date, and he told me about his kidney disease, and that was, I was very interested at that point, and he was nervous to share that with me because he didn't know how I would feel about it. And I just was curious, like, tell me everything about it. And after I got off the phone with him, I just started doing research on living kidney donation. I was like, that's an organ that you have two of, and I like this guy. I like him to be around for a long time, whether things continued or not, whether we got married or not. I just felt in my heart I want to give this guy a kidney, and that was back in 2010. The transplant didn't happen for 7 years, but it's been on my heart that whole entire time that when this guy needs a kidney, I've got one for him.
When were you married, Steve?
We were married April 21st, 2012. So we got engaged March 20th, 2011. Mm-hmm. And that was about a year after we'd started dating. Yeah. And then a year after that, we got married. I remember, because I had no money. She didn't have any money. We were both in school. And so I had to woo her the best way that I could. And one of the ways that I wooed her that's ended up being a staple in our story, I lived by myself in an apartment near MTSU. And I knew I was going to ask her to like slow dance with me. Since I didn't really have anything, this is a true story. I brought out a bunch of smell good candles that you get to, like, not romantic ones at Yankee Candle. I'm talking like the smell good ones you put in your bathroom. And I put them around the little living room, and I lit them up, and I tried to make it as romantic as you possibly could. And so I started playing the song Everything from Michael Bublé. And because I didn't really have internet connection, it would skip like every 10 or 15 seconds. So we would slow dance, stop, start again when the music started, stop. And it took a while to get through that song. So it was such an incredible moment that we decided, like, you know what? This is our song. If for whatever reason we end up together or these special things happen in our lives, we'll always dance to the song. And that's exactly how it ended up playing out. That song will come up a few times throughout our story, but I was so happy when she said yes. I remember I took her on it was like a hike or a nice walk in Murfreesboro, one of the parks, and we stopped on this little bridge. And so I started talking to her about how I'd love to get married as long as it's the right time and things like that. And when I went to go down on one knee, I did it so quickly that I pulled my back. And so I'm on one knee and I'm hiding the agony in my face, which probably looked bad on her end. She's like, this guy's going through something he does not want to. Like, he's fighting something. And so I asked her if she would marry me. She said yes. I gave her the ring. It took me a while to stand back up, which should have been a sign of things to come right there. Like, she was my caretaker from the second I asked her to be my wife.
That's when you start falling apart.
And start falling apart. And so she helped me back up. As you guys who have seen our story know, that's happened 100 times. But
Okay.
yeah, that's how it happened.
Steve, let's talk a little bit about your experiences with kidney disease. When and how were you diagnosed? Tell us that story.
Okay. I was 18 years old, and I was in my first semester of college, my freshman year. I was playing college basketball at Maryville College, right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And so we had gone through preseason and done all of the fall conditioning and all the things that you hate. And a couple of weeks before the season was to kick off, we had a preseason physical for everybody on the team. You know, the easy stuff. And I got down to the very last test, which was the blood pressure test. And the lady took my blood pressure, and she took it twice. And she looked at me and she was like, "Are you anxious? Are you nervous? Like, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I feel great." You know, I was 18, 6'2", 180 pounds. I felt fine. And she said, "Well, let me check this with a different monitor." So she did. It came back the same. My blood pressure was about 185 over 130. And I had no idea that that was bad. I didn't know. All I know is I wanted to be in college, play basketball, and do all of that. But she looked at me and said, "We need to send you to your family doctor to do some blood work. And until then, I'm going to recommend to the coach that you can't play." And that just like killed me because I didn't understand. I was only 18. I was like, "I feel great. I feel fine. No, let me go play. Let me go have my life." And of course, that's, you know, you're 18 years old. You don't know any better. And when I got some blood work drawn at my general practitioner, it was about 3 days later or so, they called me and said, "We've got to get you to a nephrologist because some of your blood work doesn't look right." And they mentioned my kidneys, but I mean, I can't really remember that phone call so much because I was just so tuned out. And so my parents took me to the nephrologist and didn't even know what a nephrologist was, what they did. And the guy came in, is Dr. Newman. I remember he came in and he just kind of cut to the chase. He said, "You have kidney failure." And I was like, "Wait, time out. What?" I was like, "What do you mean I have kidney failure? I feel fine." And he was like, "You have less than 50% function. And that's you're in chronic kidney disease. You have chronic kidney disease." So he said he was going to order a biopsy, a bunch of tests, all of these things to find out what was causing it. And they couldn't figure out what it was. And even to this day, I don't know what caused my kidneys to start to fail at the age of 18. The only thing that my doctors and I think it might be is that I went undiagnosed as a juvenile diabetic, because when I was a kid, I was always thirsty. I had every sign and symptom of a diabetic, but the doctors would say, "Nah, he's in the upper, like on the edge, basically." Instead of being, you know, preventative at that point, they just kind of let it go. And so I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as an adult. And now that I get low blood sugar, I remember that feeling. When I'd be outside running around the yard, when I'd be shooting basketball, running with my friends, I remember that same feeling. And so I personally believe it's from undiagnosed diabetes as a kid. And we just let it run rampant for however many years. And that's what did it, because there is no family history of kidney disease in my family. And so that's how I found out. That's when I was diagnosed. I was 18. I was told I could never play basketball again. And at that point, I hated the disease so much that I ignored it, which I can agree now. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't have. I would have told myself, "No, don't do that. Don't do that. Quit saying you feel fine. Just take care of yourself. Listen to doctors, research, educate, and learn about what's going on." But, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I went through it the way I went through it. And I think everything's turned out okay.
Yeah. Steve, talk to us a little bit post-diagnosis. You've done some very interesting things up to the point where you met Heather. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've done? I mean, you didn't give up basketball completely, right?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, okay. So I decided to transfer from Rebel College, and I went to the University of Tennessee, which is right up the road. That's where my parents went. I'm a big UT fan, so that was an easy decision. And while I was there, I kept having, this urge to play ball because I'd been doing it my whole life. And I decided to go down to the athletic offices in Thompson Boling Arena, which is where the basketball teams play at UT. And somebody had told me guys can be used on with Coach Summit and the Lady Vols to practice against them. So I went down to inquire about that, and I told Coach Summit my story, and Danielle Donahue was her name. Gosh, I'll never forget that. She was the basketball operations director, and they said, "Yeah, come try out. We're actually doing tryouts next week." So I went, I tried out, and I'll be honest, like I did great. Like it was one of the best performances I've had. I mean, I couldn't miss, but I was hitting three after three after three, having fun, and it was just so great to be on the court, especially playing down in Thompson Boling Arena. And I got the call that I'd made the team, and so I got to do that for an entire year. Every day after class, I would go to Thompson Boling Arena, get dressed for practice and practice with Coach Summit and the girls for the entire year. And that was such an amazing opportunity because for those of you that do keep up with women's basketball and basketball in general, Coach Summit, Pat Summit, is considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest coaches of all time. So I got to be around that every day. Even if she wasn't talking to me, I picked up things from her. I learned things from her. And she was just an incredible, incredible woman. I got to see a side of her that most people didn't get to because she was portrayed very much like very stern, give you the stare down and just a very strict coach. And she was. But that was when she had to be. That's when she was coaching. When it was just Pat Summit, the friend, your counterpart, somebody that you need to talk to, the sweetest lady I'd ever met. And proof to that is I actually tore a ligament in my knee during practice one day. I was taken to the hospital and I had partially torn, what's that called? I can't even remember. Like a meniscus. And so she calls me a day or two later and says, I still want you to come to practice. I still want you to be a part of this. And I want to allow Jeannie Moshak and our UT Athletics, the trainers and medical team to work on you. So that way you don't have to pay to go have someone else do it. I mean, just incredible that she would say that. Like, I'm just a practice player. We don't even get paid or anything. And she cared that much about everybody in the program, not just her players. And so those are things that I'll never forget. And when I graduated from UT, I got a degree in sports management. And my practicum after college was down in Florida. I worked for Disney. And at the time, it was Disney's Wild World of Sport. Now it's ESPN's Wild World of Sports. And it was the most incredible job ever. It wasn't the college program. It wasn't running around dressed up as Mickey and Goofy and all of those. It was an actual business internship where we worked 40, 50 hours a week only doing business stuff and working with clients and groups at the sports complex. And so it was amazing. I was able to meet so many great people that I've been able to stay in contact with to this day, that I talk to for advice or just looking for a laugh. And one thing I tell people is my very first day on the job, very first day that they took me over to the sports complex because our offices were off campus. It was the NBA draft camp, the pre-draft camp. And they were doing it at the Milk House, which was a huge gymnasium that I was the event manager of. And they actually played NBA games there last year during COVID. For those who follow the NBA, all the games were played where I used to work. And so I go in there, and right in front of me is Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. Did not get a chance to meet them, but I was all of 10 feet maybe away from it. And at that point, I was like, this is the coolest job in the world. Like, are you kidding me? Like, working for the Mouse, seeing people like Michael Jordan, I could do that all day. But unfortunately, that's also when my disease started getting worse. And I ended up working with the Orlando Magic in the NBA because this was 2008. So the economy had tanked at that point, and Disney had come to us and said, we can't hire interns right now, which was so heartbreaking. But I was blessed that I was able to get a job down the road in Orlando. I worked for the Orlando Magic basketball team, and I did marketing and sales. And the Magic was my favorite team growing up. I kid you not, my bedroom was decked out in Orlando Magic wallpaper, covers, sheets, pillows, everything. And so that was an amazing opportunity to do that. But once again, the disease was getting worse. And that was when I discovered I was suffering from something called gout. And I pretty much threw out every single stereotype and myth about gout. Because when people hear the word gout, they assume somebody who's extremely overweight, they eat a lot of red meat, they drink a lot of alcohol, or they eat a lot of seafood and things like that. And I know, like, that wasn't me. I was 6'2", 190 pounds, athletic. And it turned out I was having gout, where I thought I was having either a stub toe or maybe an infection. And that got so excruciating, and my job required me to be on my feet some days 12, 13 hours. It was just hard. And so I moved back home. That's when I decided to get my master's, and that's what led me to Heather. So yeah, I was blessed to be able to do some really cool things. I love acting. I love writing. I've always wanted to do both. When I was also in Florida, I got a chance to do that, to do a couple of movies, some commercials, and actually did some stand-in work at Universal Studios in their backlot. And so that was a dream come true. So being able to do something like that, yeah, I was blessed. I was blessed, because little did I know what was coming with this disease was going to be a.
I want you to. We'll start with Heather this time. I want you to tell me the story about Christmas and the biopsy and the strange coincidence. Our audience would love to hear that. So we'll start with Miss Heather this time.
Yeah. So when Steve and I were newly dating, I told you that he had kind of kept his kidney disease from me for a while. We had a conversation one day. So he had graduated a little bit earlier than I, and so he moved back to Knoxville. So I was still in Murfreesboro finishing up my degree. And so we had a long distance relationship, and I kind of wanted to feel out, whether this is going to last or not. So I started talking to him about just my faith and my relationship with God, because that's something that's important to me. And so I told Steve about a time when I was 14 years old. I had never shared this with anybody before. I started praying for my husband when I was 14. God knows that he needed a lot of prayer. And I started praying for him, and one day while I was praying for my future husband, I got this terrible feeling that he was dying, and it didn't make any sense to me. Nobody, I knew at the age of 14 was marriage material. I was like, how in the world could my husband be dying if I've not met him yet? And so obviously it was very upsetting for me, and so I just continued to pray, and I just started to pray that God would allow me to take on some of his pain, and that he would allow him to live. And I immediately felt just this excruciating pain in my abdomen when I prayed that I could take on some of his pain. And so I just prayed through that pain. And after I told that to Steve, he was very silent on the other end of the phone. And I thought, this is probably the end of our relationship. He probably thinks I'm pretty kooky, like she hears and feels things from God. And so I was really nervous and just kind of waiting for his response. And his response was, have I ever told you that I have kidney disease? And at that point he hadn't. And so I was like, no, tell me more about that. And so he told me about the time he had a kidney biopsy, which he told you earlier was right after he got diagnosed at the age of 18.
Roughly about the same time that you felt that pain, right? He had the biopsy.
Yeah. So I had been praying right around December 2003, and then he told me about something that was happening to him right around that time.
Yeah, because she had said it happened right around Christmas 2003, and that's when I just kind of went blank because I was trying to gather myself and figure out what to say. And so when I asked her if I'd ever told her about my kidney disease, and she said no, I said, well, I was diagnosed, and they performed a biopsy on me. And during the middle of the procedure, the most excruciating pain. And I made them stop because I was 18. And so they stopped the procedure. They rushed me back up to my room. I seemed okay at that point. So my parents left to go get lunch. I was just laying there. All of a sudden, this pain came back, but in a much different area. And it was excruciating, and it just came out of nowhere. And so the nurse came in, and it just kind of went away. And she said, maybe there's some issues, your nerves are starting to fire back up from when they had the local anesthetic and things like that. And then it happened again a few minutes later, but worse. This time they had called the doctor who had operated on me. He came rushing up. He pushed on my abdomen area a few times and said, we got to get you downstairs. So they rushed me downstairs. They take me to a CT scan. Right about the time I got to the CT scan, I started feeling awful. Like, I started feeling nauseated. I started feeling very tired. I started feeling bad. And so they did the CT scan. They put me back on my gurney. They rolled me out. And while they were looking at the results, they hurriedly came back in and said, you have severe internal bleeding getting into your stomach and lungs. We've got to operate now. And I remember them rushing me down the hall, and I started throwing up blood. And that's one of the last things I remember. They take me to the OR room. I do remember the OR room a little. And then I kind of just pass out. I wake back up a few hours later, and the doctor comes to see me, and he says, I don't know what your faith is or your belief system, but somebody upstairs is looking out for you. And I said, what happened? And he said, that was one of the most severe bleeds I had seen. So he said, when I was going in to clot the bleed, it just stopped like that. He said, I've never seen a bleed that bad just stop on its own. And he said that it basically saved my life. And that was December 19th, 2003. And of course, the internal bleed was in my abdomen and things like that. And so, I mean, right then and there, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is insane. Like,
yeah, we were both
right about the time that Heather was saying her prayer, right?
Yeah, we were both in shock after we both heard each other's stories. Like, just our mouths dropped because, I mean, here I was, trying to feel out the relationship. Is this going to be something that's long term? And, I'm sharing a very personal story with him about my future husband, not knowing if that's him at that point. And then him basically confirming, like, yeah, like, this is meant to be. And we're both like, wow. Like,
Wow.
When you talk about an awkward moment at that point, we just kind of stopped talking. We're like, well,
so
what do we do now?
Just like get engaged. Like,
great story. And I want to point out for our audience, it's my understanding, and if I'm wrong, you correct me, but it's my understanding you guys are both deacons in your church. Is that a correct statement?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more, Steve, about your kidney story. I understand you started dialysis in 2015. You were accepted into Vanderbilt's program, kidney transplant program. So that's around 2017, is that correct?
Yeah, I had started dialysis in 2016.
16, okay.
Yeah. Yes, in June or July of 2016. And I actually started dialysis, unfortunately, how a lot of people do, by going to the ER and then them telling you right there, we've got to start dialysis, which gives you no time for planning or getting prepared for that or anything like that. So yeah, I started dialysis. I did get the port in my chest for dialysis. Unfortunately, that did get infected. I went into septic shock because of that. And it was the worst few days of my life. I had no intentions of living through that because I had been told that basically have your family come here to see you. And I pulled through. Another miracle. Heather saved my life again as well when I was unconscious in the ICU. She came in there and laid next to me, apparently, when I was unconscious. And she sang our song, the one I was telling you about earlier that we danced to. She sang that song. to me. And the next day, my vitals started jumping back, and I was awake. And that's when I started feeling a little bit better. They decided to give me a fistula after that. Like, none of us wanted to go down that route again of septic shock
Yeah.
with the cord. And so they gave me a fistula. I had to wait. I can't remember how long I had to wait for it to mature. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks. You may know the answer better than me. And so I started doing in-center hemodialysis, and I did that until September 25th, 2017.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the baseball card story. So I'm going to start with Heather on this one.
Yeah.
So Heather, get us up to speed. What was going on with the baseball card thing? I saw the video.
Yeah. So basically, how that happened was, like Steve said, he had gone into septic shock. He's had multiple surgeries for his gout and infections, and we would joke that the hospital was our home away from home. That's where I spent all my vacation days off from work, was at the hospital. And so that time in our life was very, very difficult. And I remember one time getting off of work, going back to the hospital where Steve was staying at the time, and I would, spend the night at the hospitals with him. And so one night he was just particularly depressed, and just to kind of lighten the mood, I asked him, what's something that you enjoyed as a kid? And his face just lit up, and he said baseball cards. And he just started telling me about this hobby that he had when he was a kid growing up, of opening packs and learning about all the players. And it just was so nice to see a smile on his face. And so we just decided after that that was something that we would enjoy when we were at the hospital, is just opening packs together, and he would teach me about the players, and it was something just fun that we could do. So when he went on dialysis, he went through the scare of the septic shock. That was very traumatic for me. I thought I was going to become a widow in my 20s. And then he got his fistula. He couldn't work because he was doing dialysis, was pushed out of his jobs that he was working at. And so just, feeling pretty low again. And so I went to his doctor's appointment with him one day and told his nephrologist, like, we're going to get him a kidney. Like, if he's not sick enough to be on the transplant list yet, what if he had a living donor? And basically said, I am his living donor. How do we get this process started? And so I actually got approved to be a living donor before Steve was officially on the list. But while I was waiting on my results to see if I was a match, I was more nervous than I've ever been in my entire life. Just so incredibly emotional, waiting for that phone call. And I just had a conversation with God, and I just felt that, for the past 7 years, I've known that I was going to give this man a kidney. Like, why worry about it now? Like, I knew that I was going to donate a kidney to him. And so I just decided to have faith that I was going to be a match. So instead of worrying the rest of that week, I decided I'm going to plan how I'm going to tell him. And so I just got the idea of a baseball card, because that has been a huge part of our journey through his kidney disease. And so I've got a pretty punny sense of humor. And so I just came up with a bunch of baseball puns on the back of the card to tell him that I was a match, that we were going to kick it out of the ballpark together, and just very lighthearted, and so I ordered that card, and I got the call probably the next day, I think, next day or two. And I have a terrible poker face. I can't lie at all. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to wait, 3 to 5 business days, how long it takes for these cards to be made and mailed out, to tell him this news? I can't. I have to tell him today. And so I sent their customer service an email explaining, I ordered a card, and this is why, and it doesn't make any sense at all, but like, I need this card today. And I'm thinking the best they can do is overnight the card. And even then, that's too long. So I don't know what really they can do for me. But the lady replied, well, let me see what I can do where it's in the production line, and I'll get back to you. And she got back to me and she said, here's the proof of the card. You can print it out, today, at your own computer. And so I printed it out at work, and then I was gonna tell him that night. And we ended up sharing that moment on our front porch swing, and I wanted to get it on film just so that we could have that memory for us for the rest of our lives, because it was a huge moment for us. And I'm going to get really emotional. Life had been really, really hard up till that point, and just to have that hope that things that were going to get better was just so exciting. And after that moment where we shared on the front porch swing, we came inside. We were emotionally exhausted just from that week of all the nerves waiting to know if our lives would be changed. We talked about it and debated even whether or not to share it with our friends and family, because I'm a very private person. It's a very personal moment. But we thought, like you said, we were very involved in our church, and I knew our friends and family were praying for us. And so I thought, well, they've been on this journey with us too, so they should know this exciting news. And so we shared it with just our friends and family, and then went to bed and had no idea what was gonna come the next day.
Steve, tell me, what was the date that this took place? The
July
baseball
6th.
card video.
It was July 6, 2017.
All right. And look at that. What a great husband. He remembers.
Yep.
And,
oh yeah. He's better at the anniversaries than I am. I'm a terrible memory.
And just so I understand, your actual transplant date was September 28th, 2017. Do I have the right date?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Way to go, Jim. Got something right tonight.
Yeah.
And Steve, tell us, the night before you're being transplanted, it's my understanding that you're having second thoughts about having the love of your life donate. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You're in Nashville, you're ready to go, and you're thinking, I don't know if I want to do this to her.
Yeah, that pretty much went through my mind from the moment she shared that baseball card with me up until, but it really hit me hard the night before because I was a nervous wreck, and I did not sleep the night before the transplant. I couldn't. I don't know many kidney patients who could, with just so many things going through your mind. And she was just kicking back, relaxing on her phone, watching TV, just having the most relaxing little vacation of her life. And I was like, "What are you like? Do you not realize what you're doing tomorrow?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Are you not nervous?" And she's like, "No." And so I was thinking, "Oh, like, do you not realize like this? You're giving me an organ. Like, you're giving me a piece of your body." And people would always ask me, "Why are you so nervous about this?" I'm like, "Well, it's not for me. It's for her. I've been put under and had major surgeries already, like quite a few times. It's her. Like, I don't want anything to happen to her. I don't want her to have kidney problems in the future because of only having one kidney, which is not likely at all, but it's still in the back of your mind." And just the thought of them cutting her open and her being in pain and it not be me that's there to help her and having to put my trust and faith in other people was very hard for me to do. And when we got to the hospital, we had to be there, I think it was 5 a.m. at Vanderbilt. We had it at Vanderbilt Medical in Nashville. And it was still dark outside. We showed up to the hospital. We got out. Our pastor was there from church, who we love so much. He was there waiting on us. And we went in, and there was already a camera crew there because at the time our story was viral and it had taken off. And so we had agreed that we would allow one camera, one person to film us but we controlled where they went and what they filmed. And so we were doing interviews at like 5:15 in the morning before our transplant. We were nervous. We didn't even think about that. We didn't even want to talk to anybody. But we're sitting there doing interviews and stuff like the morning up. And so we go up to our dressing, or it's a prep area, and of course we prepped in the same area. And they just had the curtain they pulled over, but yet I was still constantly watching, peeking over the top because I cared about her. I didn't want them giving her shots. I didn't want them putting the IV in because I thought they're going to hurt her. Like, I just kind of feel that's how I am with her. Like, don't hurt her. I don't want her to hurt. And and they have this on film. That's one thing I am glad that they had camera there with us, is we get to see some behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't see. And one of those is our last moments together when we kiss and they're rolling her out of the room. And I remember I lost it after she left. I was so sick to my stomach thinking about her going to the operating room. I cried. I felt guilty. Yeah, I was a mess. I really was.
But she had told you, Steve, that you weren't just doing this for you. You were doing it for both of you and Heather. Correct?
Correct.
That's what convinced you to go forward.
Yes, she you did say that. I will never forget.
I went a little overboard to like guilt him in the other direction, because it's the only way I knew that he would agree to doing the transplant.
Trying to balance it out.
Yeah. And, well, what she said so let me put it this way. You would do this to me. You would allow yourself to pass away knowing I could have saved you if you would have just let me. You would let me go through that torture and that mental anguish the rest of my life. Would you really do that to me? I was like, no. And so I was like, she threatened me, and then she made me feel guilty. And she had a good point. She said, look at it this way. If you really, really love me, let me love you in return. Let me save you so we can be together for as long as we can. And yeah, I knew I had no choice on whether she was going to do it or not, but it needed to accept it, I guess, more, or a little easier, even though it never was easy. But it did make a little more sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about post-transplant, what's going on in your lives now. Talk to us about your kidney advocacy experiences and why you advocate and for what groups. What topics concern you? We'll start with Steve.
Yeah. So actually, right before I began going through the process of getting a transplant, I started working with a group called the American Kidney Fund, which, Jim, as you know, that's where we finally got a chance to meet you, through American Kidney Fund. And
Absolutely.
I saw what they were doing, this thing where they fly you into DC and you get to meet with your representatives from your state to talk about issues regarding kidney disease or whatever it may be at the time. And that really intrigued me. So I signed up, and I told them, it was Ben, actually, Jim knows what I'm talking about, that I wanted to do more. Like, what can I do? And I remember that he had me start a blog. And so I started writing a blog that was called First Time, like basically the perception of somebody going through dialysis for the first time. And so I had 5 or 6 of those inserts. And that's really how the relationship began. And we actually got to go up to DC, Heather and I both. And we just fell in love with the group. We fell in love with just not just that the people were there wanting to help kidney patients, but their personalities, how serious they took it, and how much they genuinely cared, even though most of them that I talked to really didn't have a kidney background. They just had a background in wanting to help people who needed help. And that's really what you need. And so as I started advocating more, I started fine tuning exactly the areas that I found myself having a bigger passion for. And one of the big ones is the mental health aspect of dealing with kidney disease and dialysis. And the other is I do advocate about gout. I've done that quite a bit because my experience with gout was one that was really quite extreme compared to most. I actually had an amputation because of it, and it was just a whole backstory to that. And so I found myself talking about those two things because those were the two biggest impacts on my personal journey at that point through. And so that's what I try to do a lot of, dealing with the mental health and helping other patients, because I look at the help that I had, and especially with the transplant. And I told Heather this: the second that I woke up from the transplant surgery, I realized quickly that it was no longer about me, that it was now time to take my blessing and my miracle and use it to help somebody else. Because I knew the last day of dialysis for me was so incredibly hard. It was almost like survivor's guilt because everybody knew it was my last day. The nurses were hugging me, and we were talking and things like that. And so you kind of feel guilty walking out of that building while they're still tethered to that chair. And I've always told myself I'm gonna do whatever it takes to help them. I want to do whatever it takes to help someone find their miracle, because how can you not be thankful and appreciative for getting a kidney, for getting a transplant? That is not something you take for granted. That is not something that you just think, well, that's right, I deserve that, and then kind of go on your way. No, that's a true miracle. There's too many people on the list waiting for that miracle for you to take it for granted. And so I promised myself from the second I woke up that I was going to spend a lot of my time helping other patients in however way I could.
Okay. Heather, I've noticed, in addition to the things that Steve has mentioned, you guys have a Facebook group, Stand Together to Unite Each Other. You guys do a golf tournament with the Atlanta Braves. You've done numerous YouTube videos, all of which I've stolen. So talk to us a little bit about some of these other things that you guys do so our audience gets a complete picture.
Well, I get, because we haven't mentioned this for those who are new to us and our story. The night that she told me that she was a match and that she got it on film and how she's private, but decided to share just this once. We woke up the next morning, and around lunchtime, I got a call from Good Morning America, and they wanted us to be on their show. And I remember asking him why. And he was like, have you not been on the internet? And I said, no. He was like, the moment you had with your wife on your front porch last night, thinking, how do you know about that? Like, we just did that. And he said, this is the power of social media, my friend. Go look. And so after we agreed to be on the show via Skype, we went and looked, and sure enough, it was like everywhere. And that really freaked us out. It's like, how did this happen? Like, she just posted it on her Facebook for some of her friends and family to see. And it spread like wildfire. And so because of that, I use the word hounded by the media because that's really what it was. Somehow they find you, your email, phone number, and all that. And we were getting calls constantly. And so we had to make a decision. Do we turn our phones off and block this, or do we find a way to use it for good? And we realized that maybe God was giving us this platform to help other people. And so we decided to go that route. And it made it a little more easy to swallow. It still wasn't like the most comfortable thing.
It was definitely, it took me way, way, way outside my comfort zone. I remember probably a year after that video went viral, getting a message on Facebook from a girl, a woman in Louisiana. And she said, I saw your story about how you told your husband that you were a match to donate a kidney to him. And she didn't have any ties to kidney disease, but was so touched by our story. She said, I decided to donate a kidney to a stranger because of your story. And that was so humbling to know that we had that type of impact. And then with American Kidney Fund, I was kind of, going with Steve kind of like as his sidekick. Like, I wasn't expecting me to be doing a lot of talking because it's not something that I felt real comfortable doing. And I remember we went several times to DC with AKF, and I remember the time after our transplant when we went to the Hill to advocate. And I remember one morning, one of the AKF ladies came up to me, and she was like, "So how are you feeling about talking at the congressional briefing this morning?" And like my eyes got so big, and she started to panic, and she like grabbed another AKF person and was like, "Did no one tell Heather that she's talking at the briefing this morning?" And I'm like freaking out because I'm not a public speaker. Like, it's one thing to talk to your representative in their office. It's just you one-on-one. You're sharing your story. It's very intimate. That's the type of conversation I feel comfortable with. Like this conversation with you, Jim, like I'm not thinking about there are other people that are listening right now. This is one-on-one. And so it was a good thing that nobody had told me that I was going to be talking at this briefing, because I probably would have backed out. And so I was like, wait, what? Like, what am I talking about? And so it ended up working out because I didn't have time to get nervous. And so at the congressional briefing, I talked about living donor rights. And basically what that is, there are living donors who are being fired from their jobs because leave for an elective surgery can the company can say that's not covered under the Family Medical Leave Act. And so the point of living donor protection rights is to protect their jobs, to protect insurance benefits, so that, and I know of living donors who lost their jobs because of the leave that they took. And thankfully I didn't experience that, but a story that I shared, or a metaphor that I shared with Congress, was, had my husband been in a burning building and I ran into that burning building and dragged his body out of that burning building, if I had needed skin grafts after that experience, my insurance company, they wouldn't say that was an elective surgery. That's a life-saving surgery. The skin grafts on your, if you have burns all over your body, that's a life-saving surgery. And so when I looked at living kidney donation, the surgery for them to sew me back up after I gave my husband a kidney, that was a life-saving surgery. And I think a lot of people don't view it that way because it's not their loved one that's dying. My loved one was in that burning building and I had to go in and save him. That just was a consequence that I needed to be stitched back up in order to give him my kidney.
Okay, and I want to point out to our audience, there is a Living Donor Protection Act that is currently pending in front of Congress.
Yes.
It prevents discrimination against insurance companies from canceling, altering, raising your rates on your insurance if you donate a solid organ. It also grants the donor under Family Medical Leave Act time to leave their employer and to donate. And those matters are pending. You can go to any well-known kidney advocacy group. They'll have form letters. You can fill them out. You can send them in to your congressman. Please do so. It's very important that we get this passed federally because the laws in states greatly vary.
Yes.
And we need uniform protection for people that donate. 100,000 people on the list, 20,000 people donated last year. We really need to make those odds a little better.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the TV and radio appearances. My notes tell me that the two of you have been on CNN. You've been with Harry Connick. You've been on the K-Love radio show. I thought I saw someplace you had been on Steve Harvey. So you've done quite a bit of that public appearing type thing, have you not?
Yeah, it was, yeah. I'm trying to think of, so let's see, it was CNN, Fox News, ABC News, NBC News, CBS with Harry Connick Jr., ESPN. We were on SportsCenter, Inside Edition, Good Morning America, and all this other stuff. And then it was just amazing that people wanted to cover the story. And what was even more amazing was the people that wanted to write articles, or where we were featured on Facebook. That was like People Magazine. I mean, that was insane. Southern Living, Sports Illustrated, all of these things. And I'll tell you, it was a blessing, because if we just pretend it wasn't us, this is good advocacy. This is good awareness for kidney disease. So we try to look at it like that. Like, don't look at the two faces. Try to look at it as, no, this is good. Like, this is bringing attention to something that's very, very important, regardless if it's your face or not. And yeah, we've been blessed to do a lot of that stuff, and
Okay.
she's pretty good at it. Yeah.
Let me ask about something else. It's my understanding that there might be a book in the works about your story, that there's a possible, I saw a post yesterday, a possible movie. People have met with you to discuss a possible movie. Is all of that true?
It is. I don't know who you heard it from, but it seems like a wonderful.
You.
It is. About a month and a half ago, we can't go into a whole lot of it because
I understand.
But the gentleman he's a great man, actor, director from Hollywood. He was very, very big in the 90s. He is actually from Knoxville, and we just started talking, and one thing led to another, and he says, this has got to be made into a movie. Well, he has an entertainment company. He's putting out a movie. The premiere is this month. And I was like, yeah, I wish I knew somebody that was in Hollywood that could do this. And he was like, I would love to do that. Like, I think this would be an incredible movie. It could appeal to so many different audiences. So that's where we are right now. He has already said he wants to do it, that he wants to be the director. And so that's kind of where we are right now with that. So that could be very exciting. I don't really know who they would get to play me, but I tell people probably like Seth Rogen or Jonah Hill or.
Nah, Keanu Reeves, somebody cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll get that. I don't think that's what they see.
Yeah.
I want to get to the big news, okay? But let me ask this: if things happen with your movie or with your book, would you be willing to come back on with me and tell us a little more about it?
Yeah.
Would you have us
Yeah.
on?
Would you have?
Oh, are you kidding?
I mean,
I have you on every week if I have my way.
The honor would be ours.
Great.
We always warn, like, before you ask us to come back, let's see how the first one goes. Because
All right.
May take a hit, and we don't want to do that to you, Jim.
All right. Well, I want to get to the extra big news tonight. Something about an embryo transfer process, some pre-transfer activities. I thought I saw some pictures yesterday, something about kicking, and Miss Heather, can you tell us what's going on with all that?
Yeah.
Yes. So part of our health journey, in addition to all the kidney stuff, is Steve and I have struggled with infertility. We've been married for almost 10 years, coming up in April, and we've never been able to get pregnant. And it has been my biggest desire to be a mom. We have fostered 6 children in a span of 4 years. That was during some of Steve's most difficult times. Even while he was on dialysis, we were foster parents. Absolutely loved those kids, would have adopted them all in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, the goal with fostering is, fortunately, is reunification with families. And so the goal was never to adopt, but to love these kids as long as we could have them. And we did have a pretty devastating loss with our last foster daughters, and we needed to take a break because we just it was devastating. We had them for 14 months and they were taken very suddenly. And our hearts just couldn't handle it. That was in 2019. And this April, I had a conversation with Steve and I told him, I want to be a mom again. It's something that I love doing. I love being, a parent with Steve. I love having kids in our home. And I have always wanted to experience a pregnancy. With having fostered, we've had children who have been exposed in utero to drugs and alcohol, and that has a devastating effect on their little bodies. And to be able to have the honor of protecting a child, I just think that's such a precious bond and privilege to be able to love a child before they're even born. So in April, Steve and I started discussing embryo donation or embryo adoption, which is not something that a lot of people are familiar with. We weren't very familiar with it until we did a ton of research. Basically, what it is when a couple goes through in vitro fertilization, typically when someone's having infertility issues, that's one of the routes that they can take to have a child. And what they do is they take eggs from the woman and they take sperm and they fertilize those eggs, and they freeze some of them and they can do a fresh transfer and transfer one or more into the woman, and hopefully it results in a pregnancy. One of the outcomes of that, one of the unintended outcomes, is surplus embryos. So a couple wants to have a family like us. It's been difficult, so they decide to do in vitro, and maybe they get incredibly blessed and they have 15, embryos that survive the process. Well, unless you want to have a football team, not a lot of people can afford or, want 15 children. And Steve and I were given the option to go through in vitro. So, it would be $25,000 for a potential to come up with embryos, and that wasn't a guarantee for us. And so it was nothing that I ever felt like was the right path for us. Not even just the financial aspect, which is way out of our means, but it just, especially with the idea that we may have surplus embryos, that we would have, the dilemma of what to do with them. It just didn't feel right to me. And so I looked into embryo donation, and basically a couple, when they have leftover embryos, they can decide to donate them to another couple, donate them to science for research, or for the clinics to, practice the thawing process with them, or they can have them destroyed. And so we decided, well, if there's a couple out there that's trying to decide what to do with their remaining embryos, we would love to give them the chance at life. And so I joined a bunch of different groups on Facebook to learn about the process, and I joined one group in particular and just made a post about Steve and I, just saying, hey, I'm here. I'm looking for a clinic that that will accept donated embryos. So I wasn't even at that point looking for embryos yet, because in my mind I was like, this seems like a very daunting process to find a match. And so through that post, I actually got a comment from someone saying, something about what I shared resonated with them. They had been thinking about the process of donating their embryos for a long time, but they weren't expecting to find a match, and I wasn't expecting to find a match through that post either. But we ended up connecting, ended up talking on the phone for about an hour that evening. The next week, I got a call from them saying, "Would you like to adopt our embryos?" And we did. And on, let's see, September 5th. Is it September 5th? On September 5th, we transferred one of our donated embryos. And a couple days later, I started taking pregnancy tests, and they were very, very, very faint, but 2 lines, which was a good sign. And then we had blood work, and the blood work came back that I was pregnant. I had second blood work done, and it showed that my levels were rising. Yesterday, I had my first ultrasound, and not only did we get to see the baby's heartbeat, we got to hear it, which is a miracle. The baby is 6 weeks old. And 10 years. The baby was frozen 10 years ago. And it's growing, and I get to be this child's mom. And I think it's given me a better perspective of how Steve may have felt when I donated a kidney to him, because when I step back and I think about the journey I've been on to be this child's mother, and think about our donor family, like, how do you thank somebody for giving you life?
I ask myself that all the time.
How do you thank somebody? And I mean, it's a gift that obviously my gratitude, you can see it and you can feel it, but I can't put into words how I feel about this family that's now become a part of our family. And it's just an incredible gift.
Well, I'm so very, very happy for both of you. What a great story. I'm very pleased.
Thank you.
Very, very pleased. Let me ask one more question.
Yes.
Is there anything tonight that I forgot to discuss with you that I should have brought up, or would you like to make any final statements before we conclude?
I don't think so.
I think just don't ever give up. Like, Steve and I have been through so much, and some really low lows and some very high highs. Like, don't give up, because your miracle might be right around the corner. And like, I could not have imagined, 5 years ago that we would be where we're at right now. It's just, I'm just incredibly grateful, and I just pray that everyone that's listening, that they just keep faith, and that miracles still happen.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
taking time to talk to us tonight. I'm very, very pleased with the outcome of this broadcast. Thank you for coming to see us. I gotta go because I'm on overtime, and my producers are letting me know. So
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much.
Both of you are very welcome. Thank you, Steve, for taking time to talk with us tonight. Everyone, bye-bye. You have a good night. Share this broadcast with your friends, okay?
And please reach out if you make questions.
Bye-bye.
All right. See y'all. Good night.
All right, that's our show. Thank you for watching.
Brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cody's brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, ride or die, ride or die. now I gotta ride or die.